This is Robert Kraft, and I'm your host on SNN.Network, and we are the proud media sponsor for the upcoming Precious Metals Summit Virtual Investor Conference. And joining me right now is Martin Turenne. He is the CEO and director of FPX Nickel Corp. It's a publicly traded company. The symbol is FPX on the TSX Venture. Martin, great to see you. How are you doing today?
Yeah, doing well, Robert. Nice to see you virtually. Yeah.
Yes, virtually. I know last year we were in person next to a nice fire and stuff, but this year, I think I think for all parties interested, this is we're going the safer route. So it's good to have you back on.
Great. Thanks for having me.
So, like I said, we talked to you last year around this time. So, before we get into some of the nitty gritty, let's get some corporate highlights for the company in the last 12 months or so.
Sure. So yeah, FPX is a Vancouver-based company. We're focused entirely on the development of a very large-scale PEA stage nickel deposit in central British Columbia called Descartes. And so over the last 12 months, we've been moving forward on all the work required for an updated PEA. So the last PEA on this project was done way back in 2013. We've been working for several years now, putting together all the information, the data, and the testing, et cetera, to deliver a new PEA to the market in September of 2020. So the big focus for us recently has been on metallurgy and on engineering, and we're really excited to be able to put a new PEA out in the market very soon.
So for those who may have missed our interview last year, can you update us? What would you say makes the company unique and different compared to your peers? Now, there could be new things here with all these developments of the last year. So can you update us on that?
Sure. Yeah. So in terms of what makes us stand apart, I think we're one of the very few companies out there that offer investors an opportunity to kind of get exposure to nickel as a commodity. And in terms of nickel companies, we think we stand out as having one of the best development stage nickel projects in the world. So the geological risk here has been largely eliminated. We have a very large deposit. We know that. There's been 3 different resource estimates that have demonstrated this is one of the largest nickel deposits in the world. The focus for us, as I alluded to earlier, has been on showing the best way to metallurgically recover that nickel, and to recover it in a way that can produce a product not just for the stainless steel business, which is sort of the backbone of nickel demand for the last many years, but we also have flexibility to produce a product that is suitable for the electric vehicle battery market as well. And as you know, that's the fastest growing segment of nickel demand. A lot of people are looking for exposure to that thematic of green energy and battery metals. We've seen what's happened, for example, in the price of the Tesla shares, just as an example. And I think, the companies that supply the raw materials that can serve the battery metal requirements over the next coming years and decades, like FPX, offer sort of an interesting alternative for people to look at from an investment standpoint.
So let's give the audience, I guess, a little overview of that supply chain right now and how it technically works, and then what needs to be done in order to, let's say, EV continues to grow and grow in terms of the actual market size. What needs to happen in order to make sure it can really supply that growth?
Yeah, good question. So, I mean, first of all, the EV market as a percentage of total nickel demand right now is quite small. So EVs only consume about 3 or 4% of nickel every year of total nickel consumed. But most analysts believe that number will grow to 15, 20, 25% over the next 5 to 8 years as more and more EVs are on the road. And the question then becomes, for nickel in particular, there's a real possibility of a supply shortfall. The nickel market has been in deficit for many years, just due to strong stainless demand and fairly modest supply growth. So as you introduce this new source of nickel demand from EVs in the coming years, where is all that nickel going to come from? It's very clear that the market needs to start building new nickel mines. The last major cycle of nickel mine development was about 10 years ago. So if you look at the landscape, you have to ask, well, which are the companies that has the deposits that can be put into production over the next several years to meet that shortfall in nickel supply? And we think our project Descartes here with FPX stands as one of the best in terms of both scale and having the opportunity to produce nickel at a low cost for that EV market or for the stainless market.
And then tell us a little bit about where the various nickel projects are mostly centralized, and in particular then FPX's, and where it fits along that spectrum.
Sure. Well, one of the interesting things about nickel is it has a high concentration of what I would call geopolitical risk. So well over half of nickel supply currently comes from countries like Russia, Indonesia, and the Philippines. And for various reasons, those countries, the supply coming out of those countries is at risk due to various geopolitical tensions, whether they're internal to those countries or whether they're more geopolitical and cross-country in nature. And so having a deposit in Canada, Canada has traditionally been a leader in nickel production. That has declined over the last several years with the rise of supply coming from these other countries. But if you're seeking, nickel supply from a stable source, geopolitically speaking, and also from a source in terms of a country that will do mining to the highest possible standard when it comes to ESG, so environmental, social, and corporate governance, you can rest assured that nickel coming from Canadian operations will be at the highest standard. And if you marry that with the sort of, the appetite I think that people and consumers have for making sure that they have ethically sourced goods, whether that's everything from food or other consumer goods that they might consume, we think that, having a nickel deposit in Canada fits within that theme very well.
And then you've already alluded to my next question a little bit earlier, talking about the expected PEA in September 2020, but let's get the full picture. From what you can tell us, what are some of the other, including this, just kind of repeating that again, what would you say are some of the company's value catalysts now for the rest of 2020 going into 2021?
Yeah. So the principal one, as you've said, is that new PEA coming in September. The 2013 PEA suggested that this is a project that needs a nickel price in excess of $10 a pound to be economic and feasible. And we have quite high confidence now, based on all the work that we've done on additional drilling, metallurgical work, engineering work, et cetera, that the new PEA will show that the project is feasible at a much lower nickel price than that. So we think there's an inherent sort of re-rate possibility coming with the publication of that new study. Beyond that, we're also doing a lot of work with the University of British Columbia on research into how we can develop this operation ultimately as a carbon neutral mine. Without getting too far into the details, our tailings, we believe, will have the ability to naturally sequester and capture carbon dioxide. And that could lead here to the development of a nickel operation, producing nickel for the battery market, and where that nickel would be coming from a source that is actually carbon neutral from a mining, from a carbon footprint standpoint, which we think would be huge for investors and also for strategic groups looking to get involved in the project.
And with that, where can my audience go and find everything they need to know about FPX Nickel?
Yeah, check us out, fpxnickel.com, and also at FPX_nickel on Twitter, where we post a lot of information about the project and about the nickel market generally.
Perfect. Well, Martin, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this interview. Stay safe. Good luck. And I look forward to our next update.
Thanks, Robert. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Again, my name is Robert Kraft, host of SNN.Network, proud media sponsor for the Precious Metals Summit virtual investor conference coming up in September 2020. So thank you all for joining us.